Good evening. My name is Robert Grizzle, and this is a presentation for a survey course in Western Civilization Part 2. The topic we're going to cover this week in Module 7 is World War I and the Rise of Nationalism. As we go through this presentation, I want you to keep a few things in mind, and I want you to ask. I have some questions I would like for you to keep in the back of your head while we're going through this. First off, what is nationalism? Okay, is nationalism bad? Is there ever a good reason or a good outcome from nationalism? Okay. Nationalism is roughly defined as preferring or forwarding the interest of your nation or your ethnic group above any other group and any other supra group, okay, any other larger group. In the United States today, it has a very negative connotation, the idea of being a nationalist. You hear it in the media almost every day. You'll hear somebody say, well, President Trump is a nationalist. Or you'll hear so-and-so is a white nationalist, okay? So there's this, there's a stigma to the term, okay? I want you to consider that, though, as we're talking about this. I want to go back to the event that sparked off World War I. Okay, I want you to think back. It was 1908, and the region of the Balkans called Bosnia, and their capital city, which is Serbia. Sarajevo. Okay, they've been a part of the Ottoman Empire, but the Ottoman Empire has decided to relinquish them, and the Austro-Hungarian Empire is going to annex them. Okay, so this is a kind of a volatile situation, though. These people do not speak the same language as the Austro-Hungarians. They have different customs, different religious practices. Okay. So it's kind of a tense situation. Fast forward from 1908 to 1914, and we have basically the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Okay, he has been invited to come to Sarajevo to review the troops, because they're under occupation. You have Austrian troops there. He's come to review the troops, and he's supposed to go visit the city hall and basically give a speech. And it's a royal visit. Okay, so he and his wife Sophia, they come into Sarajevo by train, and they get into a car. And if you've seen photographs of these old cars, these huge limousine type cars, they of course let the top down so that the crowd, because it's gonna be a parade. There's gonna be a caravan of cars. There's 6 cars in the caravan. Okay, they're going to be in a procession. He's gonna, it's like the Queen. He's gonna be waving to the crowd. Okay, as they go through town, there's only one problem. Because of the tensions that have built up since 1908, there is a group of nationalists, terrorists, that are there in Sarajevo at the time. They're waiting on him to come, to be honest. There is actually 6 of them at the parade. The group is called the Black Hand. Okay, this is a group, they're dedicated to the liberation of the Serbian people. Okay, as I said, they consider themselves separate. They're not like the Germans, and they're not like the Austrians. Okay? So They are heading through town, and they place 6 of these terrorists along the route, and they're just waiting. So if he slows down or if they get a shot, they're going to take it. Well, as he gets almost to the center of town, he's heading past the Sarajevo Police Department and the Bank of Sarajevo. They slowed down a little bit, and one of the assassins sees his shot, and he pulls out a grenade, and he tries to throw it into the convertible. The problem is, luckily for Archduke Ferdinand, his driver has quick reflexes, and he spotted the grenade flying through the air, and he speeds up. The grenade misses falling in the car, but it lands between the cars, and the car behind them rolls over it, and it blows up underneath the car. Okay, so those people hurt. They panic. They drive as fast as possible. They get to City Hall. He still gives his presentation. He gives his speech. Well, afterwards, Franz Ferdinand, he wants to go to the hospital and visit the victims that were in the other car. Okay, so they load up. The head of security says, okay, the best thing to do is just head straight back down this road, the main thoroughfare through town, and go to the hospital. But for some reason, there is a miscommunication with his driver. Okay, everybody else went straight. The driver made a mistake and took a wrong turn. Okay, well, this wrong turn, he realizes it. He puts on brakes. He comes almost to a complete stop on this corner. As I said, there were 6 nationalists in the crowd. One of these was a young man. He was 19 years old. His last name was Princep. Princep is actually inside of the building on the corner. It is a local delicatessen. He has kind of slipped in there. He's trying to be as inconspicuous as possible. Okay. He's basically, they know that they're going to, if they get caught, they're in trouble. So he's trying to kind of blend into the crowd. He goes into this delicatessen. He's standing up, at the bar or whatever, and he looks out the door, and there sits the Archduke with his wife. So Princep sees his moment. He steps out through the door, walks up to the side of the car, and shoots both of them at point blank range. Now, this is the event that would spark the war. And you say, well, how does this one assassination spark a world war? The simple answer to this is alliances. Okay, there had been an alliance between Germany and Austro-Hungary. Okay, so they knew that each other. One was going to come to the aid of the other. Recently, though, a representative from France had gone to Russia. They had signed an agreement. They had an alliance. Okay, and so these crisscrossing alliances are going on. And about the same time all this was going on, the British had made an agreement to support and basically prop up the Belgian government. So you have these alliances going in all different directions. Okay, the Germans mobilized. They see what's going on. The Austrians have declared war. The Germans mobilized to aid them. They knew when they did, though, that this was going to set off these other alliances and these guarantees of aid. So for years they had a plan, and by the time you get down to World War I, it's known as the Schlieffen Plan. The Schlieffen Plan basically worked out how to handle a war on 2 fronts with Russia and France. The Germans planned to slip through Belgium. They figured Belgium is this little bitty country. They're not going to cause any problems. So they're going to slip through Belgium, go in, take Paris, neutralize France. Then they could turn their whole army around and head north and catch the Russians, because everybody knew the Russians were slow. It was a huge empire, and it was slow to get mobilized. Okay. Well, there was one problem. Belgium didn't take to the whole idea. The Belgian people put up a fierce defense. Um, they stopped them almost dead in their tracks coming through Belgium, which meant that the Russians had time to join into the battle. And it also triggered the other alliance with the British. So the British are involved. So here we have all the major actors on the scene, and you start to see the development of the Eastern and Western fronts. Okay, so that is how this one incident sets off World War One. Okay. That being said, as I said, I want you to think about this as you're reading this week and as you're going through your different primary documents. Is nationalism bad? Is it a bad thing, or does it depend on levels of nationalism? In some countries, nationalism is just considered to be patriotism. In the United States, for a long time, what's now is considered by some to be nationalism was actually considered patriotism. Is it wrong to be a patriotic American? Or is it wrong to be a patriotic Serbian who wants other people out of your country and wants to rule your own country without having influence from the Germans? Or in recent times, this incident is not the only time this has happened. In recent times, they've had disputes over and over again. During the 90s, you had the Serbian and Croatians were going at it, and the United States had to send UN troops in to basically be peacekeepers. So this situation, this nationalism keeps coming up. To give you some perspective on this, let's think about, okay, Princip. How is he viewed today? If you go to Bosnia and Sarajevo specifically, how is he viewed? Well, after the war, they tore down his house. Well, they rebuilt it and turned it into a museum. Then in World War II, after World War II, they tore it down again. But then when the communists took over Yugoslavia, they rebuilt it and turned it into a museum again. Then you have the delicatessen. After World War One, they put up a pillar in honor of him on the corner there at the delicatessen. Within a year, they tore it down. But then later, they put up a plaque. The plaque insinuated that he basically threw off, with his actions, he threw off the German oppressors. Okay? Well, then they tear the plaque down. Then somebody put the imprints of his feet outside of where the delicatessen was, where it was supposed to be that he stood when he fired those shots. Well, now they're busted up. Okay? If you go and ask a Serbian, what do you think of Princip? He'll tell you he's a hero. Okay? He was fighting for his people. You go and ask a Croatian, though, he's probably going to tell you that he was a murderer and he killed a woman. Okay? So keep that in mind. History's got a lot to do with perspectives. And I want you to keep that in mind as you're going through the readings this week. Think about the perspectives. Think about how other people view these topics. Okay? I hope you have a good week, and we'll talk to you soon.